It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
We all seem to have that inner critic inside our heads. I have a committee, the itty-bitty shitty committee. You know what I mean, that nagging voice or voices, in my case, that knocks us down and drags us down the road of self-sabotage and self-neglect. A strong, positive sense of self-esteem is our first step to anything you wish to accomplish. Discover who you truly are, that gorgeous, talented, fabulous woman who deserves recognition and unconditional love. You know the most beautiful thing any woman can wear is confidence. Here on Confidence in Bloom with the Divas That Care Network, I, Tina Spolatini, speak with women living in their own self-confidence about who they truly are and how they found themselves and how they care for themselves. Today I'm speaking with Corby Furrow. Despite outward success, Corby Furrow felt like an imposter, a chronic people pleaser, and overgiver. She had been clinging to her prestigious job for 25 years, only to realize that once it was gone, so was her sense of self-worth. On a journey back to herself, she found a simple technique called emotional freedom techniques, which saved her life. Today, she supports and empowers women who lead by healing triggers, eliminating anxieties, and becoming unwavering in who they truly are. Corby is a certified executive coach, a chartered professional of human resources, a certified EFT trainer, a speaker, a facilitator. Her favorite title is that of Grammy. All the love and joy with no parental responsibility. Oh, I love that intro, Corby.
Thank you.
Grandkids have to be the best, right? I'm not there yet.
They are.
Goodness. I'm not ready for that, but I remember my parents just loving it. So
yeah.
Congratulations.
No.
You have 2, am I right? 2 grandchildren?
4.
Oh my goodness, 4.
Yeah.
Wow.
So very lucky.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
2 boys and 2 girls.
Oh, even better.
Yeah.
Yeah, even better. You get to see like both worlds in all 4
exactly.
of them. I love that. Yeah. So tell us more about EFT.
Okay. Yeah, EFT is emotional freedom techniques, and it's really coming onto its own lately, and it's been around for about 25, 30 years, and what I love about it is there's so much science backed on it now. It's just not this woo-woo thing out there anymore. And what it does is a simple technique that we use acupressure points, like an acupuncturist might use, but we're using our fingertips to put pressure on our meridians. And so what it does is it sends calming signals to our body to start to calm down because, as you know, in your intro, I love that, that itty-bitty shitty committee, those are all our triggers that get us going, right? Because it feels like they're real. And so when we start tapping using the pressure points, it starts sending signals to our brain to calm down. So once we can bring that calm down into our body, now we can see that, oh, this wasn't real. What is the real situation? Because we have more capacity to deal with it. So it's used as stress management, symptom management. When you use it in coaching, you go deeper because it goes beyond just the management of things, right? Where it's like I get triggered, I have to manage my stress, I bring it down, I deep breathe, or, say I want to be more calm, but I have to do it all the time when I get triggered. So when we go coaching, we go deeper into the root of why are we getting triggered? What about this is really activating my system? So once we do that, we can actually deactivate the stress that's causing it so that when the trigger happens, now we have choice around it versus the programming that was always in there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So now we can have choice.
Right. So when you say, it's not when you go deeper in coaching, it's not just management anymore. It doesn't, make your stresses disappear. It just helps you cope better.
Exactly. But if you've got a reactive trigger all the time, say you got scared by a dog when you were a child and now every dog is terrifying, right? we can work on that trigger and the sensations that get caused by our thoughts of it, right? Because now every dog is a threat, which isn't real, right? And so we can actually deactivate those stresses in there so that you can say, oh, yeah, it was this particular dog, not every dog. And our bodies are still built that we can have that sense of like, oh, that dog is scary, so I can, not go near that one. But the other dogs we can actually now enjoy, right? So it gives us that ability to manage our stress for when it's more real and maybe when it's versus perceived.
Aha. Okay, so I see now. Okay, that's like super cool. And pressure points, I know I've seen EFT done. I've had it done on myself as well. I know the main ones are like the top of your head, your across your chest, and underneath your arm. Am I right?
Yeah, so we do. There's a 9-point sequence that goes on, and it doesn't matter the order, but we do it in an order just because it's easier to remember when we have an order. So yeah, so we have the top of the head. There's the eyebrow points right where our eyebrows kind of start by our nose. So we tap on those points. Then we come around to our side of our eye, and there's points on that side. Right underneath our eye, just kind of on the tops of our cheekbones. And then underneath our nose in that little, that kind of nose part that we have, our finger fits into that. And then in the divot of our chin where it kind of dips in. And then if we find our collarbone, it's about, an inch below our collarbone on our chest. And then we have mid-chest, mid-body line underneath the armpit, about a hand width below, and then back to the top of our head. So that's what we call one round of tapping. And it was discovered, like when it first came out, it was discovered that, these meridians are attached to different body parts, and they used to, what's the issue? And if it's a gallbladder or stomach, they'd have a sequence for that. But what they found, it was confusing, right? And so they found that by doing these 9 points, there's kind of a crossover of the meridian energy. So you get a lot more benefit of it. And whether that point's affected by the stress or not, it doesn't matter. Like, it's not going to hinder anything by doing extra points or over tapping. So we just have to, that's why we do the 9 points in that sequence, just so we can remember for ease of use and just to have the benefit of it.
Okay, so then obviously, like, we feel our triggers in our body. This much I've learned in my years. But obviously the trigger, like the points that we're pressing during EFT, there's, for myself personally anyway, they're not really where I feel my stress when things come up. But they're pressure points that kind of go throughout the entire body. Am I right?
Yes, they'll be in the kidneys, the stomach, the liver. They're all over our body, into our heart, into our, there's every organ is attached because these meridians work with what we call our ventral vagus nervous system. And that's where all our feels and things are, where sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system is. And so it's all working in conjunction with each other. And so even though, it's like, well, I should be tapping maybe where my pain is, it's not. It's still, we're getting the benefit because it's stuck energy that is causing the issue. It's not, thoughts or things like that. It's the energy that gets stuck in our body that wasn't allowed to process. I was reading in Gabor Mate's new book, the Myth of Normal. And he was saying, when a child, say skins their knee, and our first reaction is to scoop them up and it's like, you're okay. And rather than just allowing them to cry, to process the pain, to feel it, because sometimes when we grab them right away, as long as it's not life-threatening, it doesn't allow them to process what they need to process, because he said once they kind of process it and they're ready for us, they'll actually look for us or call for us. And that's when we should actually go in, because now the bodies have been allowed to complete the cycle that it was supposed to complete in that pain cycle.
Oh, that is so interesting. That's probably why, the soothers exist, right?
Yeah.
If we let them cry, maybe they wouldn't have a soother. I had a heck of a time getting rid of my daughter's soother.
Yeah. Well, it's a security, right? It's a safety. And that's the whole thing. That's what we as parents are, to provide safety for our children. But it's like to know when is it essential, or when do we just need to hold space? When is it that they really need us? Because our first instinct is to make it better and stop them crying and make everything happy again, right? And it's like, what if we could just be with it and see, like I said, providing that it's not something emergency that needs to be handled right away.
Right. And as adults, we've been told, right, to sit with our feelings, right? Feel where you're feeling it and see what happens when you just sit in it. And if we would have taught our kids that when they were babies, maybe, life wouldn't be so chaotic. That's interesting.
Possibly, yeah. But we were taught by people who weren't allowed to have their feelings, and so when somebody says, comes along and says, well, just feel your feelings. Well, we've spent most of our life being a walking head, and it's like everything, we don't feel anything. We have a body. It's like, how do we connect to that, right? So it is a big learning thing. And so, if we can learn to be with our feelings, then, our kids have a better chance of being with it and honoring that. But it's tough, because when kids are freaking out, it's hard to remain calm because our stuff gets triggered, right? And then we react to that child instead of holding that calm space. And,
exactly.
It's hard. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's super cool when you think about it like that. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. So when your clients come to you for coaching, how do you know, like they're not necessarily coming to you for EFT?
No.
Like they're coming to you for coaching, like you're a coach. So what kind of, what would tell you that they need EFT? I guess if they can't get past their triggers.
Well, I'll say everybody needs EFT because the whole thing is like we have stuck energies, and you think of the stresses that we encounter as our body every single day, right? So our body is really like a filter. We get energies from the world around us, right? We hear it like the cell phone energies, we get people's energies, we get stories, we get news, we filter all of this through our body. And our body, I think it's like 40 billion bits of information per second or something. And our body only gives us maybe like 20,000 bits of information to try and process, right? Because it's too much into our conscious. And so we process only a little bit, but we store these other stresses. So we start to, like hold our stress in our body. We're very stressed. I think of, I was a single mom for a long time, and I was go, and thinking, I'm not stressed. But every time I would sit down, I'd be like almost passing out because I was so exhausted. That's a pretty good indication that I was pretty stressed. But at the time, I just thought, I'm just too busy, right? But it's like, no, my body's like, I need to have the rest. So it's like, I don't necessarily start tapping with my clients right away because it's like we have to see where they're going. But definitely, if somebody's stuck, we all know what we want, but there's something stopping us from getting it. And that something stopping us from getting it is usually a pattern or behavior that we've adapted to, right? That says it's not safe for me to go speak in a crowd. It's not safe for me to be vulnerable, right? So if I want to give a big speech in front of somebody and now it's like I'm terrified because I can't, well, if chances are you've had a bad experience maybe as a kid when you had to speak up in front of the class or something, and then you got laughed at, and you think, I'm never doing that again, right? So now as an adult, you want to do that, and now these old triggers are coming up. So where EFT really shines, it helps to move this energy that's been stuck of this, it is a traumatic incident. Even though we think of trauma as something big, it's just the things that happen in the moment that we form to be true about ourselves. And so when we think that it's true about ourselves, now we spend our life proving it. And so when we don't have to prove it anymore, now we free up that energy, that old memory, and now we can, as an adult, now take the stage and be vulnerable and do our speech. So there is a point for it, because if we could think our way through it, we would all just read the book and we'd be fine.
Right. If only it were that easy.
I know. Everybody wants that easy button.
Right. So I'm wondering now, when you do like a therapy session with your client,
coaching
does
session,
that eliminate?
Not therapy.
Oh, it's not therapy. So what would you call it?
No, not therapy. No, it's coaching.
Okay, coaching. So you've done a coaching session with your client, and you've done EFT during the session. Does that eliminate the trigger? Or, I mean, I know it doesn't eliminate it. It helps control the trigger. But does that mean it'll never come back? Or can it come back after?
Yeah, but what happens, and, just even like an example with a client I had today, like she said, I still have, it feels like I got punched when I'm feeling rejected or something. And it's like, but, she said, but I just take a minute and I can breathe into it and then I can move on. And that's the difference. Whereas before, when she felt rejected, she'd be down for days, you know, in her head and not moving forward and not doing the project she wanted to do. But now it's like, oh, I noticed that it's there. And it's like, I see a bigger truth now. Whereas before, the truth is the trigger, right? So it reduces that trigger because we don't want to get, you know, everybody has this thing. We have to get rid of it. We have to, you know, feel it, fight it, and get rid of it. It's like, what if we could love it and embrace it and honor it? Because those were strategies we needed to survive as a child, for connection, for love, for belonging. You know, that's what we figured out. And so, but they carry on for the rest of our life, even when we don't need it. And that's where the imposter syndrome, the stuckness, all of this happens, because now we've changed, but our strategies of protection haven't. And that's where you know, our foot on the gas and the foot on the brake starts to happen, because, you know, part of us wants to go and the other part's like, ooh, that's not safe for us to do it. And so when we can, you know, love that part of us, and that's what this is, the whole journey is really about self-love, is coming back to loving every single part of us, because those adaptive strategies have also given us a lot of who we are and the good things that we do in the world too. It, you know, produces probably us being very diligent, or, you know, being able to figure things out, or, you know, there's a lot of things, even though we think there's the negative side, but the two are enmeshed. But when we can make peace with the other side, now we can kind of change the strategy of safety so that it fits us today, while still using the amazing gifts that it did give us.
Right. I get that. And when you say love yourself, like absolutely everything about ourselves, that means unconditional love no matter where you are right now. That doesn't mean, you know, you don't want change in your body or in your inside, like your personal development, right? It just means that I accept myself for what I am and for who I am.
Exactly. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that you can't improve or change or anything, but you're going to love yourself through the process.
Right. So is that do you find that that's kind of what you work on with most women in your business then, is learning how to love themselves so that they can heal and move on?
You know, ultimately, that's what we're always working on, really, is that self-love, even if we don't know it. You know, most of it shows up, though, in, you know, they might have a good, big goal. They might want to have a promotion. They might want to figure out, how do I stand in my power in my business? You know, there's so many different things that people come in for, but usually, you know, it's at the core of it all. It's like, yeah, do I love myself? You know, what will other people think of me? Is it safe for me to do this? You know, the fear of success or failure. Those are kind of the core things, that belonging that we all have as humans. And so whatever the external issue is, there will be an underlying thread to all of this at some place. But it doesn't necessarily, we need to clear it all out to be there. No, if you can get to the place where you can get your goal that you want, you don't have to dig any deeper. You know, it's all dependent on that person. But there's a lot women are coming now is for, you know, the courage. They want the courage to step forward. They want the courage to have their voice, right? They want to be themselves and not have to please everybody. You know, so there's so many different things that people come to me with.
I love that. That's so awesome. I just lost my train of thought. It's just so interesting that, you know, like just tapping in, you know, these 9 spots. I know there's other places. Like I know that I've seen you do on the fingertips, and I imagine the toe, like the tips of the toes would have it as well.
I would think so. Actually, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that for sure. Because, our bodies mirror, so I would say that's good. I'll have to look into that and see if that's the truth. But, like our meridians that run through our body also run down our fingers. So if you're, like, you know, extending your hand out like going to shake somebody's hand, that's the tops of your fingers just on the sides is where you can actually press to do tapping that's more discreet, we'll say, right? Because people aren't comfortable just tapping wherever they are, right? Because it does look silly.
Right.
But it's very effective. So when we can squeeze our fingers, nobody knows that, right? People are always playing with their fingers, or even, you know, even rubbing the pressure points, right? We rub our chins, we rub our foreheads. That's the body's natural way of trying to de-stress us. You know, our bodies are always looking to heal, Now we are just actually bringing some consciousness to it, right? So we're going to help out our bodies to try and do this. It's trying to tell us this all along, but we've learned to not listen to it.
Right. And our bodies are amazing machines.
Absolutely. And when we can love them for that, everything changes.
Right. Right. Exactly. So now I had a question I was going to ask, but I'm not sure it actually makes sense. The first thing that women need to have when they're working with you is, I mean, obviously they need to know what they want and what they're not getting.
Yeah, and the openness and desire to change, right? To not put up with what they're putting up with, right? And a lot of people, you know, that's why they're coming, is because I don't want to be where I'm at. I want to be somewhere different. I want to feel different. You know, I want to feel joy. I want to feel peace. I want to feel calm. And they know that there is something different, or they wouldn't be seeking it out. Some people never recognize it. They just live in the misery of it. And that's okay too, because when it's their time to recognize it, they'll get there. But it's the ones that are, you know, have that awareness that there can be something better. And once they, you know, if they aren't clear, they don't have to be crystal clear, because we can work that out, you know, through conversation and questions and figure out what is it that they want, right?
Right. They just need to know that this is not what I want and I need to fix that. Yeah. I remember I had a coach once, and she would ask the question, what am I tolerating now? Yeah. And it took me a long time, because I'm like, well, what do you mean and what am I tolerating? And, I mean, that's what it comes down to. What am I just, you know, allowing to happen because it has to happen? You know, is there something I can change? Right? So that's a good question. And that's what, you know, you could ask too, right? Or what you would ask is what are you holding on to right now? What are you tolerating? So these women that you're working with, Corby, tell me, where have you led them? Where do you lead them to once they come to you?
Like through the coaching sessions, you mean?
Yes.
So each journey is different, you know, and what they want to work at with, and it's surprising what gets uncovered, and but ultimately at the end, like, you know, they've got the courage to move on, that they can be who they are, you know. And the beautiful example today is the client I was working with, where she says, like, I am grounded, I am solid, I know what I offer, you know. That's where I want to get my clients to, right? Another one was like, wow, it's like everything I was hanging on to is the opposite of who I am now. I don't need to hang on to that. And it's like, and people are coming to me. They want me. They want my business. They want, you know, because I am free to be me, and people feel that energy. There's a different energy about us, right? Because when we're in our conditioned responses, which is what we are, right? We're adapted to our conditioning and how we were supposed to show up in the world. And when we let that go and become who we are in the world, everything changes, because now we know who we are. We're solid in what we offer, and people feel that. There's a different energy about that.
I love that. Once we become who we are. Isn't that funny? Like, I mean, I'm in my 50s, so I'm thinking, like, some of us, it takes that long, and some longer.
Absolutely.
To figure out
and no
who
judgment.
we are. Right.
Yes.
That is actually kind of scary, right? But like you said, we are all like people pleasers, and we have imposter syndrome, and we have all that stuff of pretending, you know, to be someone you're not. I love that. Yes. I love this. We had such an awesome talk. I know the last time you and I met, we talked. I felt like we talked for hours, and I'm pretty sure it was close to 2 hours. And I remember walking away going, oh no, am I going to remember what questions to ask? Because we talked so much about this. If there was one thing you could tell our listeners about EFT and the benefits, what would that one thing be?
That it's a tool always on your hands, right? You've always got a way to calm yourself and give you a greater capacity. Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah, and the fact that it's in your hands, and it's something you don't have to, like, you don't even have to remember. You know, I catch myself squeezing my fingertips, like, all the time. Yeah, and every time I catch myself, I'm always like, oh, yeah, Corby said I could do that, and it would help calm me. Yeah, and it's always available, no matter where you are, what you're doing. You have the power to, control what's going on.
Right, and so many of us need to be told that so many times, right? Like we need to allow ourselves to believe that we have the power. I have the power for me. You have the power for you. I love this. This was so awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. I want to ask you one more question.
Yes.
What makes you laugh more than anything else in the world?
I think just when I think of it is thinking of my grandchildren and just their goofiness and their joy in life. It just reminds me that we need to keep that childlike joy.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Kids have a way of doing that, don't they?
They do, yes.
And then they turn into teenagers and we're like, oh.
Yes, that's a whole other story.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
And maybe we'll just talk about your social media. You have Facebook and Instagram, am I right?
Yep, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
And you're at Coach Corby?
Coach Corby _ is my Instagram. Corby Furrow is on my LinkedIn, or Radiant Core Solutions is my page. And Facebook, I've got Radiant Core Solutions or Corby Furrow.
Thank you so much again for joining me.
Yeah, thank you.
Confidence in Bloom is a celebration of self-love, a confirmation that you're an amazing, desirable, brilliant, gorgeous, talented woman, even though you may not look like a screen star or a supermodel. The truth is, they don't even look like that. We offer unconditional love to our partners, our children, our extended family, even our pets. It's high time we got out of our own way and learned to unconditionally love ourselves. Chic definitely does come in every shape. So if you want to believe in something, start with yourself. If you'd like to be a guest here on Confidence in Bloom and chat with me, contact me through Instagram at infobloomstyling or by email at tina@infobloomstyling.com or through the Divas That Care website.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.